Hey everybody, Mr. Price here on Friday afternoon. We just distributed about 200 bags of vegetables to 2 meal sites, so that was pretty exciting. But I thought I would take a vegetable break on our farm walk for today and check out our restoration area. So we're going to take a look around fledgling forest, our wetland, and our hedgerows around the Tatooine field, so we can kind of get a feel for what is leafing out, what is growing, and what is flowering. So, oh, there's an eagle up there right now. Cool. So, here we are in fledgling forest. We've got most of our species that we've planted are leafing out really well, looking really good. So we've got things like our mock orange here, which is starting to set its little flower buds if you look really closely. Some of the cuttings that we did, amazingly enough, like here's a really big dogwood cutting. I think Mark F from Gates, this is your tree that you planted. You can see it's starting to bud out and grow. So this is like a pretty massive cutting, and even that is starting to be successful. Our willows have not only leafed out, but they are setting their flowers for the year. I'll try to hold it still, but little pussy willows here. So lots of cool stuff growing. And another thing I want to note is often with our native species, they will get like damaged in the winter from frost or other things. So this is an elderberry here that wasn't looking so hot, but if we look down at the base, this is new elderberry growth coming from its rootstock. So plants spread both by seed and by rhizome. And many of our species are spreading by rhizome as well as putting on some top growth. So pretty cool stuff. I'm gonna see if I can find, we have a bunch of currant. Yeah, like here's some currant. Or sorry, this isn't currant, this is thimbleberry. Thimbleberry you can identify because it has 5 lobed leaves, or it's got 5 lobes on its leaves. So this twig looked very dead, but again, we've got nice new growth coming in from the bottom. There's not even a twig here, and there's some thimbleberry. So we got lots and lots of stuff growing. Some of our older species, or our older plants, like here's some elderberry that is now flowering. So these are great early flowers for both our like native bumblebee pollinators, as well as our mason bees. Really windy out here. So beautiful little white flowers. Those are going to make some red or blueberries. I don't know which species this is, but those are also edible for birds and medicinal. So again, we're trying to create habitat for birds, for insects. Eventually this will get shaded out, and we could have some other larger species moving in as well. Our alder trees look super awesome. They're growing really fast and are really beautiful. So I know you are probably interested in seeing the stuff we planted most recently in our tree tubes, and that stuff is all looking great. So here's another, I know the light's not great, but it's a really good looking alder in there. Our vine maple has been looking really good. If I can go find the vine maple. The things are looking nice. So we're still looking at only about 10% die-off out of all the things we planted down here, which is really good. Often when you're doing restoration projects, you're like, here's a nice vine maple. These vine maples are just leafing out. Often when you're doing restoration projects, you don't actually expect a whole lot of things to survive. Often you'll get 40% or more death. Here's another vine maple just opening up. There's another one. So they're all looking really good. So these tree tubes, if you remember, they are providing a little mini greenhouse, keeping moisture in, and also keeping these little plants from getting eaten. So they're serving 3 functions. And what's neat is after this year, we'll be able to take these tree tubes off, all these species will be fine, and then we will be able to reuse them year after year. So they're made of plastic. So here's one of our bigger vine maples, just for reference, that is leafing out and looking really good. Happy vine maple. So these, as the name describes, do kind of vine out. So it's a great understory plant. You notice this is planted underneath. This is growing underneath our alder trees here. So they do well in shade, and they kind of spread out and find some light. So they're really excellent habitat. So we'll take a walk back here. There's a little bird. Something kind of cool, if you guys remember clearing out the blackberry along the fence line back here, we've got some ferns that are finding some purchase, which is pretty exciting. Blackberry is coming back. We're starting to get the weed whacker back here. Our madrone trees are looking good. This is, I think, the only tree that has died back here. Just didn't make it for whatever reason. But got a happy alder. This dogwood, although it's looking a little sad, is leafing out a little bit down there. More happy dogwood everywhere. A really, really beautiful happy vine maple, looking really good. So Cameron G, I know this was one of yours. I think yours an Andes. It's looking really good. This is red dogwood here. And even, you guys might remember, this was that little vine maple that was actually submerged over the winter. You can kind of see where the water line is here, right on that bank. It's looking just fine. It bounced right back, so that's pretty darn cool. So another benefit of that blackberry removal, along with they got lots of ferns and some more blackberry, but our Indian plum species, which is a really excellent early flower. I showed that in a previous video. This is from this plant here. It's kind of confusing because it's right next to this alder tree. But this Indian plum is sending out rhizomes and all these new shoots. So that is actually the same tree, but it's great. It's kind of populating this area we cleared. So we'll need to stay on top of the blackberry, but for now at least that should be fairly easy to do. These other little alder trees are looking good. Somebody has been eating this. We don't know who that is, but yeah, Cascara here. It's gotten a little eaten, but that's all right. I'm sure it'll recover just fine. Our wood chipped area, the grass is starting to grow back, which is all right. We've gotten our plants a nice, good head start. Everybody's looking good. So yeah, things are looking really, really good down here. So all the planting we did, Mr. Gibson planted a little black-capped raspberry patch, which is a nice relative to thimbleberry. It's not really showing up on camera, they're so small. There they are. So everything we worked really hard to plant over the winter is thriving, so it's going to be cool to watch its growth this year. And just from a backup perspective, all our trees in the wetland are leafed out, which is awesome. They're looking really, really good. We've seen some nests of birds moving in. Some even like a scrub jay, which is kind of surprising. Stuff we have planted over here looks good. More elderberry flowers. Our big elderberry over here, so for those little elderberries, the white flowers, and they've got this opposite. We're gonna take this one. Elderberry is easy to identify because it's got these pointed leaves. Serret margin. Can I get that to show up on camera? Kind of. Serret margin. And then this opposite leaf arrangement here. So very easy leaf shape to identify. And you can see these white flowers all over this tree. So all our elderberry should get at least this big. We gotta remember this one was totally buried in blackberry too. So it'll probably be really happy this year. So this is kind of cool. You can see this is probably wood that's at least 10 years old. And now that we've given it some space, we've got this totally green new growth coming off here. So this is one happy plant. Very exciting. Ooh, it smells good too. So yeah, if we get elderberry flowers while school is in session, we can teach you how to make a tincture in hydrosol, which is really good when you have a cold. Elderberry is incredibly good medicine.
So I did have a bit more tour for you, but unfortunately I unplugged my microphone. Sorry. So this is all I have for you this week. However, I do have a challenge question for you. So your task is to go and find one or more plant species that are in bloom right now, meaning they have flowers, and see if you can post a picture of this plant in our discussion. And while you're at it, see if you can identify two characteristics that would help us identify this plant species, and we can do that in our discussion together. Try to figure out who these plants are, whether they're native, whether they're naturalized, or whether they're invasive. So that'll be a fun task for us this week. I am looking forward to seeing what you come up with.